All right, I am here with Roberta Power, and Roberta is an educational consultant. Is that the correct?
Yes.
Yes, there we go. Educational consultant with Pro Literacy New Readers Press, and Roberta will be joining us at the Adult Centered Education Conference, May 16th and 17th in sunny Coquitlam, we hope, at the Executive Plaza Hotel. And Roberta will be speaking in a concurrent session on the Friday. So thank you again, Roberta, for joining me this afternoon.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Jonathan.
Awesome. All right. So, Roberta, maybe you can just tell our audience or attendees a little bit about how you got into adult education. I know you've taught a variety of different levels and programs, and maybe you can just tell the audience how you got into adult education.
Okay. So I started off actually as a teacher's assistant at an ESL school, like right out of
Mhm.
university.
Okay.
And I really enjoyed it. And I was witnessing the teachers in class, and I realized that uh, this is maybe something that I could do. So eventually I applied for a job at one of the language schools that I was working at as an assistant
Mhm.
and got a job as a teacher. And it actually wasn't until years later that I got my TESOL certificate
Yeah.
because I managed to just get jobs without it back in the day.
Right. Right. Yeah.
I'm that mature,
Right. Right.
that old. So I anyways, I ended up applying for a job at a language school thinking that I would get it because I had so much experience. And he told me I would need my TESOL degree, and I still didn't have my TESOL degree at that time. But he said, well, you know what? He said, I'll hire you if you go out right now and you register for
So.
radio. He said, this is going to change your life. So
Mhm.
I did. And so I got it. And then I eventually got hired there. And then about a year later with Link, with
Mhm.
the Link program. So everybody knows what the Link program is, do they?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think if not, I mean we can say it's the language instruction for newcomers to Canada settlement program,
Right.
basically. Yeah.
Right. And at that, so at the time, from the beginning of the time I started teaching, I was always using a lot of drama in my classes and allowing for a lot of self-expression, having the students do, role play and dialogue practice and skits. And I was also doing a one-woman community TV show at the time, which was
Oh,
kind
cool.
of a self-help psychology show. So I've always, done a lot of that kind of thing in my class. And in order for the students to, improve their communication skills and their grammar and their vocabulary and just all their skill areas, I just tried to find a way to use drama in my class for students to meet their learning objectives. And so I did puppetry and radio plays, and we did things like mock court trials while learning about Canadian law and roles in a courtroom. And for some of these creative projects, I actually started using some of the books from Pro Literacy New Readers Press,
Mhm.
which is an adult literacy publishing company. I started using them in my class because a lot of them lent themselves really well to dialogue practice
Right.
and role play and drama. And I remember I had trouble placing an order one day, and so I got in touch with customer service, and customer service and I got into a kind of friendly conversation. I said, I noticed that you have representatives all across the States, but you don't have anyone in Canada. And I really like your books. And, is there anyone I could talk to about, maybe representing Canada somehow? And so she got me in touch with the national sales manager, and the national sales manager, I expressed my interest in the book, and he said, I don't think this is in the cards anytime soon, but I'd be interested to hear what you have to say, about our resources. And so I guess he just felt, after a few sort of informal Zoom meetings, really, it wasn't like a really formal interview process. I think he really felt confident that I could spread the word about the resources in Canada.
Right.
So I learned after I started working for pro literacy that we actually use a lot of our funds to we're a not-for-profit, so we use a lot of our funds um, to support adult literacy causes and raise adult literacy rates. And I hadn't realized that in Canada and the US, literacy rates were as low as they
Mm,
are.
right.
So, and then I also discovered that we not only have ESL books, but we have a great deal of books for adult basic ed and workforce readiness. And then I learned that we actually supplied a lot of our books to the correctional institutes. And at that time, I didn't know that I hadn't made that connection between, incarcerated individuals and low literacy.
Mm,
Um, and my ears really perked up when my boss told me this, and I'll talk a little bit more in my session about why.
right.
But so I started I've just launched a podcast recently for incarcerated students and their teachers,
Hmm.
in order for corrections education, the educators and the students to have a forum and a voice, and to make their education. I've entitled the podcast "Meaningful Sentences," so it kind of has this dual meaning of helping students with their literacy
Mm,
and sentence structure and grammar and expression communication, but also trying to make their time in prison more meaningful.
right. Right.
Yes.
No, that's great. Thank you, Roberta. And I think your pathway, that transition, I think is quite interesting from educator to advocate and sales rep. And now, I mean, what really interested me there when you touched on the podcast for incarcerated students. I know we will have a number of corrections educators, so I think there's a connection there as well at our conference.
That's
So
fantastic.
yeah, I'm really excited about that. And maybe, just for that last question, you can give a bit of a teaser. You don't want to share too much, I'm sure, but a little bit of a teaser about your concurrent session on the Friday, because I know it will touch on your podcast.
Right. So I'm going to be playing clips from the interviews that I have with the teachers in corrections.
Mhm.
So far, at the time of this interview,
Mhm.
interviewed four different educators in three different for three different interviews.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I've interviewed Trent Gillespie, who is a teacher in like a multidisciplinary instructor at Saskatchewan Penitentiary
Oh, wow.
in the maximum security unit.
Mhm.
And that's a really cool interview. He goes into a lot about, how that he really searches out materials like for Indigenous students. A lot of
Mhm.
Indigenous students are overrepresented in the incarcerated population. So he searches out very interesting and engaging stories, um, so as not to re-traumatize.
Mhm.
And that's a really cool interview. He just talks about uh, his role at the prison and the work he's doing with all of the students. And then my second interview is with Cecilia Rossander, who is um, a social program officer at William Head Institution in BC. And she runs a theater program
Mhm.
for the incarcerated individuals there.
Mhm.
That is such a cool interview as well. And then my third interview is with the chief of education in the Atlantic region
Mhm.
and an instructor there, and they go over like some digital literacy needs that they're trying to fulfill, needs in corrections education, and also their role in the Atlantic region in Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, and quite a bit about their institutions there and programming there. So this is the type of thing that I'm going to be talking about in my and playing clips of the interviews that I've done.
Wow. It's definitely, I think Roberta, it shows the, the broad, range in adult ed. When you talk about incarcerated students, it's not, I'm sure it's not the first group that pops to mind when you think of adult ed, but it really does speak to how wide a net adult ed casts. So I think, what you described there, those interviews from different educators across the country, it's really piqued my interest, and I'm sure it's interested a lot of our attendees as well. So looking forward to that. I know that's the Friday of the conference, and I just want to thank you again for joining me this afternoon for the.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's my
Yeah,
pleasure.
that's great.
Absolutely.
And we'll
I'm
see
really
you.
excited about the conference.
Absolutely. And by the way, I forgot to mention, Roberta will also have resources from Pro Literacy New Readers Press there if attendees wanted to look at and purchase some of those resources. So
Yeah,
perfect.
and I'll also be giving some samples away at the conference that you can sample in class to see how they work for you and your students.
Excellent. Well, thank you again, and we'll see you very soon.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Jonathan.
you.